Okay, well, good morning everybody, and thank you so much for coming, and welcome to the home of Thomas Borwick and the College Green Group, one of London's leading public affairs and PR agencies. And Tom, on behalf of the whole Amess family, we just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for having this important conference here this morning. You all know me, I'm Anna Firth. It was one of the proudest but saddest privileges of my life to succeed Sir David Amess, almost 3 years today in the House of Commons. One of the best parliamentarians our Parliament's ever known, and Katie's dad. Today is about justice and fairness. Justice and fairness for a great parliamentarian. Justice and fairness for the wonderful family he left behind. And justice and fairness for all the past and present victims of the failed Not Fit for Purpose Prevent programme. In a moment, you're going to hear a statement from Rad Seeger. Rad Seeger, some of you will know, who represented the Harry Dunn family and is representing the Amess family now. You're then going to hear a statement from Katie herself, who's made the most compelling case already for a public inquiry on most of your channels. She did fly in from LA only about 36 hours ago, so please bear with. You're then going to hear a statement from Lady Amess herself. It's the first of its type that she has made since Sir David's brutal murder. There are going to be questions and interviews. So that's it from me.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the first duty of any government to protect its citizens and to keep them safe. The 15th of October 2021 was a terrible day, not only for the Amess family, but for our great open democracy. It was a shocking murder. He was a lone wolf, but he was known to the authorities. Ali Harbi Ali had been referred to the Prevent program, but sadly for the Amess family, he was allowed to slip through the net and go on to commit that terrible crime. This family have been fighting for justice for their loved one, Sir David, ever since he died, and it's shocking to me that the family of an MP has had to even begin to contemplate fighting for justice. Why on earth did the authorities not support the family after he died and help them to get the answers that they're still understandably calling for? There are widespread problems with the Prevent program, we believe. And so we are very clear that not only does there need to be an inquiry into the events to Sir David's death and how Ali Harbi Ali was even on the streets when he was known to be an extreme terrorist, but also with the wider Prevent program as well. Since 2017, I've been able to count 11 Prevent-related murders. It just isn't working. It does not appear to be fit for purpose. On Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 12th of March, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary have invited the family and their advisors to a meeting, which we will be attending at 10 Downing Street. But the Home Secretary has now issued a letter to the family in advance of that meeting to say that they're not going to get their answers. That's what the letter says. The letter says that they've had their criminal trial, that there have been paper reviews, and frankly, that's good enough for you, Amess family, and you should frankly just move on. We also firmly believe that had there been an inquiry after Sir David's murder, as the family had been calling for, that the tragic attacks in Southport last year would not have happened. So the Amess family very clearly today are linking the murder of Sir David to the murder of those beautiful children in Southport. We are unequivocal about that. But what the family were told after Sir David's death and after these paper reviews, that lessons had been learned and improvements were made. The family didn't believe that at the time. And when we all watched in horror last summer at what happened in Southport, clearly lessons had not been learned and improvements had not been made. Ali Harbi Ali was in the PREVENT program, and so was Axel Rudakabana, and they were both allowed to carry on and do the terrible things that they did. The letter from the Home Secretary, and I don't mean any disrespect, it is a poor letter. It's probably drafted by lawyers and officials, and it doesn't hold water. As I say, it basically just asks the family to accept that the criminal trial and the paper reviews are enough. They have a number of questions, as clearly the rest of us do. That's why you guys in the media, that's why I'm here, because we're supporting this family to get the answers that they still have. So for Yvette Cooper to write, frankly, what is a fairly demeaning and insulting letter to this amazing family, to say, you're not going to get an inquiry, will not do. And we will be going to Downing Street to meet Sir Keir and Yvette Cooper and to ask them to reconsider. And I'll be putting out a statement shortly going through the reasons why we think they have got it so badly wrong. As I say, after all this time, this family still do not have the answers as to why Sir David, who went out into his constituency to his surgery to help people that day, as to why Ali Harbi Ali was allowed anywhere near him. And let me just conclude by playing a clip that we have from Sir Keir Starmer, who was leader of the opposition at the time. And this is the day of Sir David's death. And I'll hold this up because, as you'll see, he himself says that there are questions to answer. So can everybody see that if I hold it there, or should I stand up? Or let me stand up. Is that?
My heart goes out to Sir David's wife, to his children, his wider family, his staff, and all of his friends and colleagues. Today is a dark and a shocking day, the more so because, heartbreakingly, we've been here before. Informed by his faith, Sir David had a profound sense of public duty, and he was highly respected and much liked across the Houses of Parliament on all sides and within the Christian community. We now have to come together in response to this horrendous act and show that violence, intimidation and threats will never prevail over the tireless work of public servants like David, simply doing his job. He was much respected. He had that profound sense of duty. He was driven by his faith, and that's why across the parties, across Parliament, he was so respected and so liked. And there's a very profound sense of loss, I think, across politics, across faith, and up and down the country. Well, there are many questions, I think, that are still there, but I think today is a day when all of our thoughts and all of our focus are with Sir David's family. And there are questions for other days, but today our thoughts, our prayers, our focus is on them.
Performing on the biggest stage in the world was just one.
So there you heard the words of Sir Keir Starmer himself. 15th of October 2021. There are questions that have still to be answered, and he said it twice in that interview. Well, those questions that need answering still need answering today. And Sir Keir, we're coming to see you on Wednesday. Please reconsider the government's position, and please hear us when we come to you and say that there must be a public inquiry so that this family can have the answers that they so desperately need. Thank you. I'll hand over to Katie now.
There are no words to describe the unbelievable pain of losing a father in such a brutal and a senseless way. From the moment that I woke up on October the 15th, 2021, my whole world was shattered beyond repair. My father, Sir David Amess, was not just a public servant. He was my protector, my guide, my greatest champion, and above all, my friend. His murder has left an unimaginable void in my family's life that no amount of time will ever heal. And it's difficult to describe the words and to explain what life is like when you lose a loved one to murder. Unless you have lived through something like this, you will never truly understand it. Murder is a crime that leaves a profound and a lasting impact on the victims' families because it's so sudden and unimaginable and just shocking. It leads to shock and disbelief on one hand, and then also gut-wrenching pain on the other. Working through all of the additional distress, having to deal with the police, the courts, the coroners and the media just adds to this pain, and ultimately you are left with an absolutely burning anger inside of you, but also a desire for justice and to get the answers that you deserve. You don't just want justice in terms of the murderer being put in prison, but you want, in our case, the authorities and the government to be held accountable as they let my father down so badly. His death was entirely preventable. And where do you go from that? Grief is not just a sadness, it is an unrelenting, crushing, suffocating, unbearable weight. And since that awful day, I struggle to breathe, to sleep. I'm scared to be alone. I fear every noise outside. I am worried that another one of my loved ones might be taken from me. I have to have therapy. I have to be on medication. And I've had to put my life on hold just to try and survive. I still wake up most mornings praying that this is just a nightmare and that I will hear my dad's voice again and see his beautiful beaming smile. But I never will. My father dedicated his life to public service. He worked tirelessly, not just for power or for political gain, but because he actually cared about this country and his constituents and the people. He didn't care what politics, what religion, what economic status you were. He just wanted to help you. He often voted against his party just to stick up for things that he believed in. He was a man of his word, a man of the people, and a man of God. He was one of the hardest working people I have ever met in my life. I would often come home late at night from a nightclub or a party and find him up in the early hours of the morning still working away because there might be just one more person that he could help. He did not see politics as a career. He saw it as his duty. He was a compassionate, kind, and deeply moral man, and I think that the thousands of messages of support and the outpouring of grief across the world attest to that. Throughout my life, I watched as he put other people before himself constantly. He never turned anyone away. He never said no. Even after church on Sundays, there would be a rush of people lining up to try and get his help, and he never said no. He belonged to the people that he served. And tragically, that is how he was taken. Meeting somebody that he believed needed help. He would have met that man with open arms and a huge smile. And that is how he met his end, in a church. What makes this even harder to accept is my dad wasn't just killed in a random act of violence. He was targeted. He was killed because he was a pillar of our society and our political system, something that his murderer hated. This is not just a personal tragedy, although of course it is my family who feel the pain the most, but it is also an entirely preventable murder and an attack on democracy itself. And yet this atrocious murder has been watered down and brushed under the carpet. If an elected member of parliament is not safe in our own community, then none of us are. My father was a public figure, but he was also a human being, a husband, a father, a son, a brother, and a friend. His murder is not just about our family's loss, it is about the safety of every representative who dedicates their life to serving the public. It is about the safety of every person who simply wants to be able to disagree peacefully and respectfully without the fear of violence. We cannot just walk away from this killing and think, oh well, we did all we could, it's just one of those things, that nothing more could have been done. No, that simply will not do. Losing my father has stolen so much from us. In the weeks before his murder, he was helping me to plan my wedding, a day he had looked forward to more than anything. It was his absolute dream to walk one of his children down the aisle at the crypts at the Houses of Parliament, and we were just 6 weeks away from that dream. He had planned everything, from the flowers to the music. He had even planned a surprise photo shoot where my husband was going to wear the same suit that my dad had worn to marry my mum all those years before. He was so excited and was telling everyone just how amazing the wedding was going to be. In his bag, on the day that it happened to him, when the police handed his bag back, I found a notebook with all of his plans in it for the wedding. They included a surprise stilt walker, a Eurovision Song Contest participant, and a horse and carriage. Whether I wanted these things at my wedding or not, I was going to have them. He had just picked out the suit he was going to wear to walk me down the aisle in. Instead of wearing it on my wedding day, that is the suit that we buried him in. I will never forget seeing that suit hanging up, waiting to be put on his cold, dead body. His shoes, his socks. We had just chosen the piece of music that we were going to walk down the aisle to. The next time I heard that piece of music, they were bringing his coffin down the aisle. As we left the church on the day of his funeral, I realised we were walking down the aisle that my mother had walked down as his bride 38 years before. And now she was walking it as his widow. Everywhere I turn, I am reminded of what has been stolen from us. The invitations he helped me make sit unopened, constant reminders of what could have been. I will never have a wedding picture with my father, even though he had already bought all the frames. My future children will never meet their grandfather. My children will never know him or his laugh. They will never be taken on adventures like I was as a child. All they will have is pictures and stories, and that is simply not enough. Why do I share all this personal pain and agony with you? It's because it matters. It really matters. I want Sir Keir and Yvette Cooper to know exactly what the consequences are when the very government agencies that are set up to protect people like my dad and members of the public fail. Doing paper review after paper review, like what has happened since my father's murder, is simply not enough. We know that there were serious failings with both Essex Police and the Prevent programme, but what we don't know is why, who was responsible, and what is being done to ensure that another family never has to go through this pain. What happened to my father should never, ever have happened. And yet here we are. A man who spent his life trying to help others was killed in a brutal, cowardly attack. And we still do not have the answers that we need. His killer was known to the agencies, and yet he was let free to rip our lives apart. And now, to make matters even worse, the Home Secretary has written to us ahead of our meeting to let us know that we will not be getting the public inquiry that we have been demanding. She and the Prime Minister have refused to grant us the public inquiry. This decision is an absolute insult and a betrayal to my family and our father's memory. How can the government justify holding inquiries for other tragic events like Southport and Nottingham? Yet they refuse to investigate the very system that failed my father. Is his life worth less than the others? Does our family not deserve the answers that the other families so rightly deserve? We need to be sure that this never happens again. Yvette Cooper has strung us along for months, suggesting that she was working on ways to help us. However, all she has done is remove the possibility of us being included in the Southport inquiry. Instead, she had offered us another useless paper review done by a person of their choosing. This appears to be an attempt to placate me and to make me go away, but I do not accept that. Our time has been wasted and it has caused further pain and heartbreak by giving us a small glimmer of hope, only to crush it. The refusal to hold a public inquiry only adds to our suffering, and it makes us feel abandoned, ignored, and disposable. The government has a duty to protect citizens and those who serve the public. My father was failed in the worst way imaginable, and yet those responsible refuse to be held accountable. The actions of the government have left us in about £30,000 worth of debt, and this should never have been necessary. If they are hoping that my resources and that my grit will run out, it won't. And I will keep coming back time and time again until I get the justice that my father deserves. To Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, who we are meeting on Wednesday, I say this: do not let my father's murder be forgotten. Do not let his death be just another statistic. On Wednesday, when we meet with you, we will be asking you to reconsider this appalling decision. The reviews and the reports that have been written so far just do not hold water, and if anything, they raise more questions than answers. Please give us the public inquiry and the answers that we in the public need. Give us the justice that we deserve. You both claim to have been his friend. You were both at his funeral. Well, as his friend, his colleague, and as a human being, please do the right thing by him. I would like to conclude by making two final points. Firstly, given that my dad was who he was, we feel totally let down by the government who were in power at that time. They also claimed to be his friend. They were also at his funeral. But they were the ones who had the power at the time to launch an inquiry, and yet they chose not to. They walked away and abandoned us as a family. It cannot be right that we had to rely on the sheer luck of bumping into and him volunteering to help us get justice for my dad. It cannot be right that those who are responsible for public safety are shying away, and we literally have to rely on the help of a Good Samaritan. Perhaps my father's so-called friends would like to visit his grave. Perhaps they would like to think about ways that they can be more like him. Perhaps they might fight for the truth and help us get justice. This is not a political game where you get to brush things under the carpet and sweep things under the rug in order to negate your wrongdoings and to make yourself look less negligible. This is someone's life we are talking about. I can see what you are doing and you will not pull the wool over my eyes. This is clearly something that we do not know in my father's case. Neither government want to touch this with a barge pole. What is it that they do not want us to know? There is a wall of silence. If they care so little for a friend and politician, how little do they care for us, the public? Secondly, we had asked the Prime Minister to allow us to have media in our meeting on Wednesday. We know that this is something that he allowed the Nottingham families to do when they went to meet with him. He has refused to allow us even to do that. It is now clear that he used the Nottingham case to make himself look good because he wanted the media there to record him announcing an inquiry. He knows that he will be letting us down on Wednesday, so he does not want you there to hear that. But he has to be consistent. He can't pick and choose. Are the Nottingham families and the Southport families more important than ours? I am now calling for him to reconsider that decision and to allow you, the media, to come with us so you can see and hear what he is saying and hold him accountable. I have lost the most important man in my life. My family has been broken beyond repair. But if my father's death can lead to real change, if it can save at least one other family from having to go through this, then at least we know that his sacrifice was not for nothing and his death will not have been in vain. My father gave everything to the city of Southend and to this country. And now it is time for this country to honour him with the full truth of this entirely preventable death. Finally, I would like to thank the public and you, the media, because it is only because of you that I am now being able to get my story out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. We now have a statement from Lady Amess herself. Are you okay to read that out?
Yeah.
Water?
Thank you.
And as Anna said, this is the first public statement that Lady Amess has made.
I never imagined my life without David. For nearly 4 decades, we shared everything. Our love, our family, our home, and a deep commitment to public service. David was not just my husband, he was my closest friend, father to our 5 children, and a man who lived to serve his constituents. His kindness, warmth, and unwavering sense of duty defined him. He believed in making the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. His murder tore our family apart in ways and words that we cannot fully capture. The loss is immeasurable. We are completely heartbroken. Every day we wake up with the unbearable reality that he is no longer here. That is my first thought every day, my last thought at night, and every waking moment in between. I am lost. His absence is felt constantly in every unshared moment, in every milestone that he is not there to share in. We have spent the last 3 years trying to grieve, but being unable to. Although we can take some small comfort from the fact that his killer will never be released, we feel that from the start we have been denied access to the truth about what led to David's entirely preventable murder. When David was taken from us, we believed, like any family would, that there would be a full and thorough investigation into how and why this was allowed to happen. We trusted that the government would do everything in their power to examine the failures that led to his death and to ensure that no other family endures the pain that we have suffered. Yet despite our repeated calls, we have been denied the one thing that can provide us real answers: a full public inquiry. We know that there were serious failings both with Essex Police and the Prevent programme. We know that opportunities were missed. We know that the system designed to protect people like David let him down. And still, we are being told that a patchwork of paper reviews into what happened is enough. It is not. To pour salt onto the wound, Yvette Cooper has now written us a totally unacceptable and quite frankly insulting letter, confirming that the government will not be holding an inquiry and that the investigations to date should satisfy us. Well, I can tell her that they most certainly don't. On Wednesday, my daughter Katie and I will meet with the Prime Minister at his request with our advisors to make one simple demand: a full public inquiry into David's murder. He must go away and reconsider the government's position and call us back to confirm that an inquiry will be granted. Not just for our family, but for the security of all the public servants and for every citizen who deserves to know that when the state fails, it will be held accountable and that steps will be taken to ensure that there is never a repeat. We do not want words. We will not just accept platitudes.
Simply told them that he was not a threat. After David's murder, this review was conducted without really speaking to any of the key people. A number of assumptions were made that are plainly wrong. And that's what then led to a fairly simple conclusion, effectively, that while more could have been done, it wasn't. But it doesn't explain to this family how and why. We haven't seen any of the documentation. We haven't seen any of the witness statements. How and why this known threat was allowed to roam the streets. The only way you're going to get behind what is said in the paper review is to have somebody completely independent undertake a wholesale inquiry. We want this to be a statutory inquiry, which means that the chair of the inquiry will be able to compel witnesses to come, to answer those questions truthfully, and to bring the documents with them. It's the only way, Dominic, that you're going to really learn lessons. And ultimately, this heroic family, of course they want answers, but as Sir David sort of demonstrated to us when he was alive, they're following that theme, and they just want to make the world a safer place for the rest of us. Now, this government has offered the family to do another paper review by Lord Anderson Casey. So it'll be another paper review of a paper review. That is not how we get to the bottom of things in this country. And you only need to look at what happened in Southport when shortly after Ruda Kubana, the killer there, pleaded guilty. Yvette Cooper instantly came out and announced that there needed to be an inquiry there. The two cases are clearly linked. And as Katie said, why should there be an inquiry into Southport and not into Sir David's murder? They're identical, the issues. Anybody else? Yeah.
Hi, Charlie Peters, GB News.
Hi, Charlie.
What message do you think that Yvette Cooper's letter sends to those who want to target MPs? And if, as you say, the government does not want to learn lessons from this incident? And beyond that also, have you heard recent concerns from other MPs about their safety ahead of this letter being released, and how recent has that concern been? Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. I think that's a very important question, because if I were in my bedroom on Google self-radicalizing, and I saw this government's approach to the PREVENT program in general, as well as this murder, I think I'd be licking my lips, because I'm learning that they're not really going to do anything other than try to rehabilitate me or re-educate me. There's no mention in PREVENT of the term public safety. And I had thought that PREVENT meant they would prevent Sir David's murder. They would take the guy off the street. It doesn't mean that at all. So I think we need to have a complete focus on public safety, however that's achieved. And I think that the PREVENT program needs as a wider issue, needs a wholesale review. I know there are a number of MPs who feel it's not fit for purpose. It needs to be repurposed. Now, none of us are counter-terrorism experts. We're not in a position to say what they should do. But we have a grieving family who are left without their loved one for absolutely no good reason whatsoever. So in terms of the wider issue of safety of MPs, that of course is primarily a matter for Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House. And I know there's been a lot of work done after the murder of Joe Cox. We live in an open democracy. I know the MPs cherish the opportunity to go to their constituency surgeries and mingle with their constituents face to face. That's something that we should all continue to cherish. But equally, as was proven in Southend in 2021, there needs to be another good look at how we keep these amazing people who are there to serve us safe. Simon.
Katie, thank you very much for coming here today and talking to all of us. Simon Dimon from BBC Essex and Look East. With the letter that you and your mother have got from the government, I mean, how much hope do you now have on Wednesday that you will be able to change the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary's minds on this?
We're going in there praying to God, and hopefully they will see this and hear our words and reconsider that we're a family, we're human beings, we're not chess pieces in a political game. So I want to go in there hopeful and just pray that the right thing happens.
Thank you, Simon. I would just add that in my personal experience, both Sir Keir and Yvette are decent people, that when they think they've got something wrong, they will listen. We will go and put the family's case to them. And knowing them as I do, I hope that they will just say to this family, okay, we hear you, give us a little time and we'll go away and have a rethink. It certainly shocked the family to get that letter refusing the inquiry, but for us, it isn't over. So the family has brought good advisors on board now, and we will take that case to the meeting on Wednesday. And I don't know whether optimistic is the right word. I certainly am, because I know that they will listen, and then I hope that they will, at the very least, will say, yeah, we'll go away and take a look at this. Again, I think that letter has been written by lawyers and officials in the Home Office and the Government Legal Department. They've done a terrible job, frankly, and they've got it wrong on all sorts of levels. And I'll be putting out my statement shortly that explains why that is. So, I mean, clearly the family are just all over the place at the moment. So.
Yeah, I mean, the way that we have been spoken to by the government legal department and the lawyers has been disgusting. We've been goaded, laughed at, dismissed. The amount of time they've taken to get back to us in correspondence, saying if you don't like how we're doing it, then sue us. Literally what one of the letters said. I think it's been written by somebody like that, and maybe Sir Keir and Yvette Cooper don't know the ins and outs, and when I meet with them, they can, change their mind. That's what I'm hoping.
Hello, Kerry Davis, ITV News. Thank you for that powerful statement you made. What happens on Wednesday if you're met with no opposition isn't going to change?
That's a good question.
Well, we will cross that bridge. Let's hope it doesn't come to it. But there are legal, avenues, as you may be aware. If a member of the public thinks the government's made an unlawful decision, there's potentially judicial review proceedings available to us. We've brought the best KCs and lawyers in to help this family, and let's see where we get to. We don't want to make that threat. That's not our intention. So, but if the answer is a firm no, and just for the benefit of the public, this is the government's decision. They are the only ones who can order an inquiry. It's absolutely their decision. And we just hope that on Wednesday they just hear us, hear the family, and will change their minds.
Hi, Charles Thompson from Southend Echo. How satisfied are you with the level of support that you've received from the MP currently sitting in your father's former seat, and do you think that he could be doing more to support you?
He says that he will support us. He's going to have to go against his bosses in order to do that, because his bosses are Yvette Cooper and Sir Keir Starmer. So the proof is in the pudding. Is that an expression? We'll see what happens.
I think there's been since I've been involved over the last few weeks, a wall of silence amongst MPs. I've spoken to a number of them who support us privately, but why is it taking the family to come to you today and to make this public appeal? They were all his friends on both sides, on all sides of the House of Commons. Why aren't they coming out and putting pressure on this government to order a public inquiry? It's a mystery to me.
Yeah, I don't sit here with other MPs. I sit here completely by myself with a lovely man that contacted me via Twitter. That's. I don't see anybody else around me.
Martin.
Hi, Martin Brunt from Sky News. Sorry, I'm peering round the door. You mentioned briefly Essex police failings, and I think I read that you're suing the police, or you're planning to. I just wondered what stage you're at there.
Well, I did try to sue the police, but the money ran out. So I wrote to the IOPC, and they said, first of all, they called me Mr. Amess, and then they mentioned an arrest of mine. I've never been arrested in my life, so there was some admin error with them. And then they sent me back to Essex Police, and Essex Police tell me they'll be doing a review of themselves. So we all know how that review is going to go. So I intend to do something with Essex Police, because they were warned the night before there was a threat. I know it wasn't related, but they should have tried to protect my dad. So I will be doing something with them, but I think first of all I need to get this inquiry. I have to deal with things one step at a time, otherwise I'll go crazy. So
We will certainly be asking the inquiry to look into whether Essex police could have intervened and stopped this death. So it's definitely part of the focus. Shivani?
Hi, Shivani here from LBC Radio. I just wanted to ask, how much responsibility do you think the government should be taking in terms of online safety and people who are potentially becoming radicalised online, and how much of a focus do you think that this should be in any possible future public inquiry?
Well, clearly, on today of all days, where there's a big focus on online safety. Thank you very much, Shivani, for your question. I think that's an important issue because the world has changed. You used to be able to spot people like Ali walking the streets in plain sight. As I understand it, he was self-radicalizing in his bedroom online. I mean, none of us, again, are experts on online safety, but it's clearly something that this is not a one-off. These are not extremely rare events. They're one or two a year, shockingly, and something more has to be done. So I think that's something, and when the terms of, if we're granted the inquiry, when the terms of reference are drawn up, we will absolutely, on behalf of the family, be asking their chair to look into that issue of online safety.
Thank you.
Okay, any more? If not, we'll close. Thank you all very much.